Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to icons, few names carry the weight, wisdom, and presence of Denzel Washington. He's not just an actor, he's a force. Calm, calculated, and commanding, Denzel has earned his place as one of the most respected figures in Hollywood and beyond. But sometimes, people forget who they're dealing with. Enter Jimmy Kimmel, a man known for his sharp wit and late-night jabs. But on this particular day, Kimmel may have pushed one joke too far, and Denzel, well, let's just say he didn't laugh. Tonight, we're diving into the moment Kimmel learned the hard way. You don't challenge Denzel. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's not handed out freely or earned through loud declarations. True respect is commanded, often without a word, simply by how a person carries themselves. And Denzel Washington is the embodiment of that presence. The moment he enters a room, the energy shifts, not because he demands attention, but because his calm strength, unwavering confidence, and depth of character speak volumes. There's a difference between fame and influence. Many are famous. Few possess that rare gravity that pulls people in without effort. Denzel has it. That's why, when he speaks, people listen. And when he doesn't speak, they listen even harder. In a world full of noise, Denzel's presence reminds us that silence can be louder than any microphone. It's not about being intimidating, it's about being centered, grounded in truth and principle. That presence is earned over time, through discipline, integrity, and mastering your craft. Denzel has spent decades refining not just his talent, but his mindset. Whether he's on screen or off, he doesn't put on a performance, he lives authentically. That authenticity is what makes people respect him before he even says a word. So when Jimmy Kimmel, known for pushing boundaries and poking fun, tried to turn that presence into a punchline, he quickly realized this wasn't just another celebrity to play with. Denzel doesn't play, he listens, he watches. And when he responds, if he does at all, it's with purpose. That moment wasn't about ego, it wasn't about dominance. It was about holding a boundary with quiet power, showing the world the difference between a performer and a leader. Denzel didn't need to clap back with insults or raise his voice. His body language, his poise, his piercing gaze said it all. I'm not here for the games. I've built my name on something far deeper than laughs. That's the kind of presence that only comes from a life lived with intention. It's easy to confuse volume with strength, humor with cleverness, or popularity with respect. But Denzel is a reminder that real influence comes from character. Not flashy moments or trending clips, but decades of excellence, quiet wisdom, and an unshakable sense of who you are. People like that don't chase attention. They attract it. Not because they try, but because they are. In that brief exchange with Kimmel, Denzel didn't just win the moment, he taught a lesson. Respect isn't a performance, it's a frequency. And not everyone is tuned in to hear it. But when someone like Denzel walks in, you feel it. And if you don't recognize it, you're about to learn, just like Kimmel did, the hard way. Some moments don't need to be shouted to be remembered. In fact, the most powerful ones often arrive in silence. In a world dominated by clips, over-the-top reactions, and a constant race for attention, we tend to overlook the strength that lies in stillness. But every so often, someone reminds us of that truth, not by yelling, not by clapping back, but by standing firm in who they are. Denzel Washington is one of those rare individuals who proves that authentic power doesn't announce itself, it just is. Charisma is everywhere. It's loud, entertaining, and magnetic. We see it in hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, who thrive on energy, quick wit, and crowd reaction. That kind of charisma can light up a room, but it also tends to burn fast. Authentic power, on the other hand, doesn't need a spotlight. It generates its own gravity, pulling attention naturally, not through force, but through presence. Denzel walks in and suddenly the noise around him quiets. He doesn't have to compete, he doesn't have to impress. He just exists fully, and that is enough. What we witnessed when Kimmel tried to press him, subtly or directly, wasn't confrontation in the usual sense, it was a lesson. While Kimmel leaned on humor, Denzel leaned on stillness. While one aimed for laughs, the other stood in quiet command. And in that silence, there was a message. You don't shake a tree that's rooted this deep. Denzel didn't need to raise his voice or issue a comeback. His restraint was more powerful than any rebuttal. It reminded everyone watching that when you're secure in your truth, you don't need validation, especially not from noise. This is where the difference between charisma and power becomes crystal clear. Charisma performs, power remains. Charisma is situational, power is permanent. One can win an audience, but the other wins respect. When Denzel didn't take the bait, He didn't lose the moment he owned it, because it wasn't about matching energy or proving a point. It was about maintaining integrity. There's a unique confidence that comes from knowing who you are and not needing to prove it. That kind of confidence doesn't speak loudly, but it resonates deeply. People like Denzel carry that weight not because they seek authority, but because they embody it. And when the world tries to test it, tries to poke at it, it doesn't flinch. It doesn't need to. In that short exchange, without raising his voice or stepping out of character, Denzel communicated more than words ever could. That's the art of restraint. That's the power of presence, and that's why moments like these go viral. Because of noise, but because of the silence that speaks louder than anything else. Jimmy Kimmel may have delivered a punchline, but Denzel delivered a principle. True power never performs. It just is. When a man truly knows who he is, no situation, no provocation, and certainly no joke can shake him. His foundation is internal, not external. That's what makes Denzel Washington so different from most people in the spotlight. He doesn't live for applause, and he certainly doesn't break under pressure. His confidence isn't loud. It's not flashy. It's rooted in decades of experience, self-discipline, and an unwavering commitment to truth. That kind of man doesn't react, he observes, he learns, and when necessary, he responds with purpose. But even more often, he simply lets his presence do the talking. When Jimmy Kimmel tried to take a playful jab, the expectation was clear: a laugh, maybe, a comeback, a quick joke to keep the energy light. But Denzel doesn't play into other people's scripts. He's not there to be a punchline or a pawn in someone else's performance. Instead of clapping back or getting caught in the moment, Denzel remained still, composed, and completely centered. That stillness, it wasn't hesitation, it was clarity. It was the understanding that not every comment deserves a reaction, and not every moment requires a show. This is the mark of someone who leads with wisdom, not ego. Someone who's not afraid to let silence stretch, to let others reveal themselves while he remains unmoved. And in that moment with Kimmel, Denzel did exactly that. He didn't flinch, he didn't retaliate, he simply let the weight of his presence make the room feel suddenly smaller for the host who thought he was in control. Men like Denzel teach by example. They don't lecture or boast. They let life and leadership speak for them. When you know your worth, when your identity isn't tied to applause or popularity, you don't need to entertain every challenge, and you certainly don't fall into every trap. You recognize that power is not in how you strike back, but in how well you hold your ground without needing to strike at all. What Kimmel experienced wasn't humiliation, it was education, a real-time lesson in the difference between fame and greatness. One is fleeting, built on attention and performance. The other is eternal, built on character and consistency. Denzel showed that being unshakable doesn't require shouting, it just requires knowing exactly who you are, regardless of who's watching. In a world obsessed with instant reactions and viral moments, Denzel gave us something far rarer: restraint, dignity, and self-awareness, and that, more than any punchline or viral clip, is what stays with us. Because when you witness someone who doesn't react but instead reveals a higher standard, you remember it, you respect it, and whether you laugh or not, you learn from it. That's the power of a man who doesn't perform for the crowd. He walks with his own rhythm, speaks only when needed, and lets the strength of his silence say everything.